Hey everybody, Joe Stofker here with Heal with Holly.
And I'm Holly Hudspeth.
And today we're talking again with Dr. Brimhall, Dr. Brett Brimhall. If you missed our previous interview with him, we covered heavy metals, the what, the where, and the why. So if you missed it, please go back and see it. There'll be a link somewhere around here so you can be able to do so. And now we're going to talk about the basics of the heavy metal detox. Like once you know about heavy metals, you know where, you know why, you know what they're doing with your body, like how are you supposed to get rid of them? So Dr. Brimhall, when people start to detox, like what can they expect to happen? Like what's going on with them?
Great question. So detox experiences are different for everybody. And here's a couple key things I want people to know is the experience might be different for you than it is for somebody else. And so there are a couple of things I like people to understand about that is so, and when people use the word detox, a lot of times that's a negative connotation, right? But I want you to understand that it's really adaptation to change, right? And so start knowing your body. If you're one of those people that you react to anything like extra, like you probably need to go slower, right? And really typically people have more detox symptoms when they aren't supporting the whole system and they're just trying to do one thing. Right? They're trying to do too much at once, right? And when you even exercise and you haven't exercised in a while, you're gonna be sore, right? So your body's gonna have to adapt, right? So one of the key things I want people to know is like, just when you're gonna start cleaning the body up, right? Let it have some time. So make sure you don't end up trying to do more, right? So don't pick like, I got this crazy week and I just wanna detox at the same time. Well, your body doesn't have any reserved energy to get rid of stuff, right? Those are things to keep in mind. And also as people detox, a lot of times they start feeling better. Like their body's starting to eliminate stuff. And so what happens is they feel like a little more energy and then they start doing a whole bunch more things and then they feel crappy again. Right. So that's your body's way of protecting you. So a lot of times your body will make you tired to protect you. So the things to watch for a detox is just make sure you're prepped, right? Just make sure a lot of water, make sure that if you're having symptoms, maybe slow it down a little bit. Right? Whatever you might be doing, slow it down a little bit. Make sure you get supporting nutrition in. Make sure you're getting more sleep. Right? Mm-hmm. Those are all key things that will help because we know if somebody is eating clean and they're getting extra sleep, they're going to function better anyway. So if you're intently working with doing a detox process of helping eliminate the metals or things from your body, right? You're asking the body to do extra work. Mm-hmm. So give it the time and give it the space to do it. And if you have symptoms, don't stop. Maybe slow it down, but don't stop, right? Because your body's starting to eliminate it. But if you're trying to do things on your own, you may need to step back and say, okay, am I eating enough of the right foods to support my body's ability to eliminate it? Am I getting enough rest? Am I drinking enough water? Do I have the emotional support, right, that I need as I go through this process? If you'll do that, then you'll respond much better. And depending on the metal, it takes a while for you to eliminate some of these things. Right. So for me personally, like I want to do other things that's going to help me along the way. And we'll talk through some of those. Because really, like if I have to clean my whole house, I can't do it by myself, right? I can. And I can do it with one washcloth and one bowl of water, but it's going to take a really long time. Right. Or I can ask for help. I can have other people come help. I can use multiple washcloths. And you know what? I can even hire it out if I wanted to, right? So just understand when you're detoxing and you think, well, I'm detoxing this. No, your body is doing a lot. So just understand if you just ask for help if you can do it on your own, like be wise about it and go back to those basics, get enough sleep, get enough water, really, really, really get enough of the right foods, right? And give yourself adequate time to do that and give a little emotional support. Like if you have a family that's around you and you're going to detox, warn them.
Isn't that the truth?
You might feel a little crappy. You might get a little snappy.
Right. They need to have grace and be supportive.
If they know, hey, mom's going through a process where she's kind of changing things, right? There's going to be a little grace there, right? And so just those are things I would say, please look at.
There's always a huge emotional component to detoxing. Absolutely.
Yeah, because why do we eat the food we do? And most of the time, guys, it's not because it's good for us. Right. And so your body, it eliminates that. It's not so happy sometimes.
So I want you to mention, because one of the things that I think is key for people to know about detox period is the elimination pathways, right? The body has ways of getting rid of things. I think one of the elimination pathways that people don't know about or understand is sleep, because the brain cleans itself. When you sleep, your cleansing organs get a chance to clean themselves. So you can talk about sleep, and then you can just let people know, what are the other ways? What are your elimination pathways? That way they can make sure they're open and utilize them.
Yeah. So there's really 7 ways your body gets rid of stuff, right? There is. So you do it through your kidneys, you do it through your livers, you do it through your breathing, you do it through your skin, you do it through your bowels, right? There are different ways your body eliminates those. So if you really want to influence or stack the odds in your favor, do things to support all of those, like all of those things.
So we want people to be sweating,
Correct.
Right? That's why exercise and sweat.
If we just break that down, let's just start with the skin, right? So are there things that I could do to facilitate my body's ability to clean out the skin? Yeah, one, not putting bad products on, but putting even good products on, right? Putting good products on, doing things like Epsom salt baths or apple cider vinegar baths. You're using the skin as a way to sweat that out. I love infrared saunas. Great way of helping the body sweat. Exercise, but not like crazy exercise. People that love yoga, they could do like Bikram yoga, that's the hot yoga, right? That's huge. Movement is part of detox. So I like people to do things that are gentle stretches, exercises while they're detoxing. Because I mean, if you've got like, you know what, if you have a counter that's dirty and there's a box sitting on the counter, you have to clean underneath the box to clean it out. So when you move the muscles and the tissue and you stretch that tissue, it opens up the tight areas so it can eliminate, right? So just from the body movement will help. Breathing exercises are huge. So the way, anytime we breathe in and out, we bring in oxygen, we get rid of stuff, right? So focusing in on breathing processes. And part of that is when your body's in a stress cycle, a fight, a flight, or a freeze state, you're not in a healing state, you're in a holding state. All right. And so pull yourself out of the fight, flight, or freeze by breathing exercises. So you're going to improve the body's ability to bring in good oxygen and kick it out. But also, like, ideally, you probably shouldn't be doing that breathing exercise in the middle of traffic, right? Where you're breathing, inhaling nasty fumes. So ideally, if you could be outside or in a nice environment, if you're familiar with salt rooms or you have an ocean near you, right? Spend some time around that. And that's a great way to breathe and inhale that in. Then you have the water intake, right? Good, clean water would be ideal because it's going to help your body flush and eliminate that out. You can actually add a little bit of apple cider vinegar or something like that too if you wanted to, just kind of facilitate the digestive juices, add a little bit of lemon. I like some essential oils, like essential oils have a power effect, so you can use things like peppermint or lemon in the water. If you want to just use like fruits and vegetables, like use cucumbers, celery, things of that nature, because those vegetable juices you can utilize to improve the pathways. You have your bowels, right? That's a big part of it. So the right probiotics, the right enzymes, the right foods, right? A lot of foods are good detoxing ones like broccoli, cauliflower, asparagus, garlic. Those are natural, good foods that help bind to metals. A lot of metals are fat soluble. All right, it means you gotta have oil to get rid of. And that's where the liver and gallbladder come into play. So you need good oils to help bind to those, right? So improving those coming into your body, that could be coconut oil, good high quality fish oils, even algae oil, those type of things you can use as a binding, right? We don't, like some fish have high heavy metals because they have metals, right? They have oils. You gotta have those oils to pull them out. Kidneys relate a lot back to water, right? And there's certain, if there's some fun things to look at, just type in on the internet like foods and detox. Type in foods and kidneys, foods and lungs, foods and skin, and you're going to find foods that tend to be more healing for specific organs and tissues. So there's kind of some of the things you can do when you're looking at improving those pathways. And a lot of people know, let's say your symptoms are asthma, like lung related. Okay, well, that's probably a system that's stuck, right? Probably a system that's stuck. So, ask for help. So for me, I'm a really big component of asking for help too. So like saunas are helpful, a good chiropractor, a good massage therapist. If you have a lot of emotional blocks, a good coach that'll help you kind of work through all that to mentally, because if we want to detox physically, we better detox here too, because it's only going to help. It's only going to help. So I know I might have kind of went in a lot of different directions there, but that's to affect all those systems.
Yeah. And, one of the things that you covered was the movement side of things. And that really gets the lymphatics moving, right? Like the muscle movement is the pump for the lymphatic system to get these things moving through our bodies, right?
Yeah, and I like you brought that up because lymphatics, most people don't even know what that is, right? Lymphatics is literally part of your sewer system. Like it is, like it's what, we have our bowels that move our things we eat, but like the stuff that moves all the chemicals away from our tissues is our vascular tissue and lymphatics. And so movement is critical for that. Critical. So I'm actually glad you brought that up.
And you kind of covered, you can do this on your own or with your cleaning analogy, right? Like you can kind of do this on your own with one rag and one bucket of water, or you can go out and find a practitioner to really support you in this process and kind of hire it out, so to speak, to get the cleaning done. But how do people, detox safely if they're older versus if they're younger?
Okay. Good
or
question.
If they're healthier versus they're already really sick?
Yeah. And I like looking at like biological age more than chronological age, because there are people that are super young and they just do not detox well, or their bodies are really in a bad spot. And so just if you're one of those people that you're struggling, please ask for help, right? And some of the things we're teaching here, as simple as it is, they're powerful. And it's really a compound effect. Everything you do over time had a drastic difference, right? And so most people didn't show up tired or toxic in a week or a day or a month or even a year, right? So it's not going to unwind in that period of time. Thank goodness the body heals faster than it breaks down, but you got to do the right thing. So if someone's really young or very old, those are kind of the extremes, their bodies are more susceptible, right? So when you're in a building phase, when you're young, your body's accumulating and grabbing onto and building much faster. So if you put toxins in at that time, it's going to do more damage. The same when the body's compromised and older or in a debilitated state, toxicities are going to do more damage, right? So that's where you want to stack the odds in your favor. So if you got someone that's really young, right, you want to make sure that you're getting the diet really controlled, getting extra sleep. And kids are good about that, actually. They normally sleep, they know when they're tired, they go to sleep. So support those pathways a lot when they're young, a lot when they're old. But also if you're really sick, you got to be really careful if you're already kind of sick, and ask for help. Like if you're somebody that like can at all afford to, like at least plug into these things, right? And do one thing at a time. Don't try to do everything at once, right? But be consistent with that one change for at least a month and then incorporate the next change. Because you can do that on your own and be methodical about it, right? But if you're going to do things on your own, please find a resource of people that you trust, whether that's you listen to some of the things we're doing or find other mentors that you trust, right? Because that's critical, right? If you're going to do stuff on your own, because if I say, hey, go buy a probiotic, and you go to Sprout to buy a probiotic because it's going to help with your detox, and there's 30 probiotics and they're all different priced, and you take one and say it doesn't work. Well, no, probiotics work, but it may not have been the right for you, or you may have bought the cheapest one and it really wasn't going to do what you needed it to do. And I'm the same thing with practitioners. Find good practitioners. And we've trained practitioners now for 25 years, my dad and I in our group. You go to brimhall.com and look one up. Like if you're just looking for somebody to give you a little guidance, Holly and Joe might give you a couple names. Like find somebody that you resonate with and to kind of work through that process with. Because it needs to be individualized, because what you think you need to do isn't always you need to do. So having some mentors there to help guide you through that process, and typically not yourself. I work with a lot of clinicians. They know what to do, but they're not unbiased, right? So they may think they need to do this, but even I don't test myself. Even I seek help and guidance, because like, even though I know what to do, like I still do lab work on myself and have people look at it. I still do hair analysis on myself and have a look at it, because what I think I might need may not be what my body wants. So please find your team of people, right, to support you in that.
Yes, we actually, I totally recommend brimhall.com to find a chiropractor that's in the Brimhall network They're brilliant. You're going to have a great experience.
And there's
The biggest thing is not having fear, right? The fear factor.
And there's chiros there, and there's MDs we train, there's PTs, there's a lot of different healthcare providers, acupuncturists. Actually, in Florida, there's quite a few acupuncturists we trained. Florida has a great acupuncture community.
So one of the things that I want to make sure that you cover, because I get a lot of people that bring this to me and have questions about it. The biggest one for young people, when somebody has like a toddler and maybe they had like a vaccine reaction, right? So vaccines and food allergies. We know there's a lot of heavy metals in the dyes and the candies and icing and things that kids eat. So let's say somebody comes, their child is 2.5, 3 years old, and they want to detox that child. What would your recommendation be on how they can go about doing that?
And those are tough too, guys. Those are tough. And what I mean by that is that watching your child struggle is just no fun at all. And there's ones where in my opinion, they definitely should and want support. As an adult, we'll swallow pills and like all these things. And there's a lot of emotions surrounding that. Because if there's a child that the parent, had a child that had a reaction to a vaccine or whatever it might have been, right? We don't want kids to suffer. And so there's all the emotions that go along with that, right? And so just make sure you're working with somebody to kind of work on that emotional component. But with kids, what you want to do is you'll typically want to go a little bit slower. At the same time, you want to make sure that you work on getting rid of the crap. And as parents, a lot of times we don't want our kids to be different, right? We don't want to not let them enjoy being a kid. But the reality is a lot of the foods that we let our kids eat are really, really, really damaging. Okay. And the best analogy I can give you is this: I've watched this happen multiple times. Is you've got a couple kids there and mom there, and the kids are eating a donut or a frosting, whatever it is, or a Jolly Rancher, and the kid goes to give the donut to the dog, and the parent will flip out. Like, don't feed the dog the donut. It's not good for the dog. Right.
All right.
But in my mind, I'm like, okay, we need to be aware that if it's not good for the dog, right? Because that stuff that you put in your body, not only does your body have to it becomes part of you, right? I know it's no fun. I know it's nice to just eat something sweet and stuff like that, but we're literally training our kids to feed their emotions. We're teaching our kids that it's okay to put non-food into our body. Right.
Well, really, we're training them that junk is a reward. Junk is a treat. It's fun to eat things that are bad for you. I mean, really, it's a subconscious message.
And we have to untrain ourselves. We've all done that. We have to untrain ourselves. One of my nutritionists I had for years, she had a picture on by her computer. It says, "You're not a dog. Don't reward yourself with food." That was literally. I'm like, wow, that summed it up, right? So those are one of the things that just keep in mind with kids. So when I'm working with kids and stuff like that, the bottom line is you want to do the things you can to improve their detox pathway. So there's certain products that I'll utilize with them to help bind to those agents, because they won't always, let's say, eat broccoli and cauliflower and stuff like that, right? So there's certain protein drinks and stuff that I'll do, and I'll mix things into it so I can get it down kids. At the same time, I will use certain drink mixes, again, to get down kids. There are certain products made that are even like suppositories, right, that you can use as ways to chelate stuff out. In severe cases, I've had parents go in and get IVs on some of their kids to pull those metals down. So you have to kind of come a different route and do what the kid will allow you to do in a way. But it's also, if their child is autistic or something like that, again, they don't communicate the same way. You have to get creative. But at the same time, you got to be a parent, because that child will only get as good as you help them get. And a lot of times they're just told you can't do anything about it. I've seen kid after kid become more than what we thought was possible, right? Because we made different decisions on what we fed them, the therapies we did with them, and it was consistent over time. So my hat goes off to parents, and I have to get really to moms. Some dads, right? But moms, they take the bull by the horns and they just say, we're just going to make it happen. So there's a couple of things that I would really be cautious with. And the same thing true with older people. When you detox them, and if you do it too fast, let's say they have some brain-based symptoms, let's say it's like memory, it may get worse temporarily. right? It may get worse temporarily. And so you have to kind of slow that down and do this other supportive things to help facilitate it.
And I mean, this is just really a good practice for parents in general to learn, because I mean, pretty much from what we covered in video 1, I mean, it's like every kid is almost born with a toxic liver, right?
Well, if you go to PubMed.gov and you type in pregnancy and toxicities, like there have been multiple studies where they tested every single child, every single placenta was tested, every single cord was tested had some levels of toxic chemical in it. So it's a good practice for all of us. There's some that'll have symptoms, right? So they affect their life more, but the reality is, it's robbing from us every single day. We eat the wrong things and we drink the wrong thing. It is literally, it's like having your bank account full of money and you're just throwing some money away every day.
So there are like people, anyone can go on the internet and type in heavy metal detox, and there are 1,000 drops, pills, tinctures, protocols. So our question to you is, can people hurt themselves just making up their own heavy metal detox or sort of going on the Lone Ranger? Is there other things people need to look out for?
Yeah, you definitely can. And I tell you, obviously do your homework. I wouldn't even trust me 100%, right? You need to do your homework even on what I'm telling you, please, right? If you have somebody that has all 5-star reviews and no negative reviews, then that's not really normal, right? So the reality is when people can hurt themselves, right? And it's not because they're meaning to, it's just you want to learn to listen to your body, and it's got to make sense here, right? In your head and in your heart. So when you're going and you're looking at stuff online, please don't always go for the cheapest. Don't always go for the most expensive too, but do go for the ones that make the most sense and is comprehensive, right? The ones that are supporting multiple systems, right? That are educating on the proper things, right? And when you're coming to a detox, you're not going to ever go wrong, really, with eating the foods that support that. And you start incorporating that into your world, right? You're really not. The broccoli, the cauliflower, the asparagus, the Brussels sprouts, right? Those things are going to naturally just help you chelate anyway, right? Eliminating the products that you put on your body, that's never going to hurt you, right? But when you go to look at the nutrients, the minerals, the chelating agents that actually bind to the metals, even the homeopathic used to help kind of facilitate that out. Again, in my opinion, I would never send somebody to Sprouts, not that I don't like Sprouts or GNC. I personally would never send somebody there to get a product unless I knew the exact product I wanted to get, the exact name, right? Because if I say, go take vitamin D, and you go in there and there's 20 bottles of vitamin D, you're going to choose one. But how do you know which one to choose? How do you know what other bindings are there that shouldn't be there? I'm never going to buy a bottle of vitamins from Costco unless that's the only thing available. Not that I don't love Costco, but like for a big bottle to be there, it has to sit on a shelf for a really long time, which it has to have preservatives in it, right? And those preservatives are great for preserving things, but I don't want to preserve myself, right? I don't really want to be sitting on a shelf, right? So those are just awarenesses. So when you look for stuff there, pharmaceutical grade, make sure you trust the companies. Find a couple of good practitioners that you trust that they're using products that are made and tested differently. For instance, like the company that I use, every batch of raw ingredients is tested and every end product is tested. A lot of companies, you only have to test 1 in 5, right? And if you do research on almost any company, you're going to find an FDA warning letter. That's just normal, okay? Because that's their job, is to find problem, okay? So I wouldn't judge it based on that, but please make sure that it is somebody that you can trust, somebody that's had experience with them. But the same thing, I wouldn't go to a doctor and somebody said, I'm looking for dentists, hey, who do you go see? Do you like them, right? Same thing is true in this arena. And so that's why we're doing these videos, guys. This is something we hope that there's a lot of value and information. So when you go to find products, look for those things. Look for is it you find this same product and you got 100 people trying to sell it at different price cuts or things like that. Really watch for that. But if you're trying to detox, use a lot of things that are going to heal the gut, right? Because that's always a safe bet. Really clean minerals, right? That's going to be part of the process as well. Find things that are known as activators, right? That are going to upregulate your body's natural genetic systems, right? To improve pathways in your body. That's a big one. because you'll see a lot of stuff in detox relationship to glutathione. Like you'll see a ton of that, right? And glutathione is something your body makes, and there's companies that try to put the precursors in, and it doesn't do a great job. There are a few that do. There's some ones that called liposomal ones that you can actually put on the skin or something like that, or you can take it and they tend to work a little better, right? But you want to like ask those questions around. And then binding agents, right? So people for years have used like psyllium husk and other things like that. A good binding agent, but there's what's called a zeolite. That's a very common thing that's used too. The company that makes there's a suppository called Detoxamine. Like on kids, I'll use that because you just can't get kids to take stuff, right? So there's a few things that I would just be aware of when you're going for products and ask questions. Like really ask the questions like, where are these made? Like, where's the source of them? Are there sustainability tied to them? Are they tested for heavy metals? Do you test every batch? And if the person can't answer those questions, then I'm going to be very leery about utilizing them, just because like if they don't know that answer, that means that's not important to them. And to me, that's important to me because I don't want to be taking something that's supposed to detoxify me and make me worse.
Well, hemp is a big, everybody's into the new hemp thing, but at the same time, people don't realize that the hemp plant actually cleanses the soil, right? So if people aren't paying attention to the testing of the hemp products, they can end up taking in a bunch of heavy metals because the hemp is pulling that from the soil.
And that's really, I actually glad you brought that up because we live in a farming area and some friend of mine, their clients, like that's one of the things that they grow, right? So they test all that stuff. So yeah, you got to know the source and where it's from, and all that's very important. And don't get overwhelmed by it. Just learn to ask those questions, right? And that's the thing is there's great products out there, some that I don't use, right? Just make sure you do your homework on them.
So one of the things that you kind of mentioned a little bit, in terms of an older person might feel worse or have more memory issues before they get better. So like, what are some other symptoms that people might notice while they're detoxing? What can people expect, I guess, to experience?
So when you first start doing that process, and you'll have less than if you're supporting all the systems. Like if you're really supporting all the systems, you'll tend to have less, uncomfortableness, right? You're going to probably have a little uncomfortableness even with exercise, right? But you'll tend to have less if you're supporting other systems. So if you're doing massage, if you're doing the Epsom salt bath, if you're doing infrared saunas, if you're doing like cold laser therapy and doing your yoga stretches and you're sweating, you're probably going to have less symptoms, right? But it's a little harder to get really young kids to do that, right? And maybe even harder to get the older generations to do that, right? So if they're having some of those symptoms, and let's say that their main symptom is they're tired and achy all the time, right? That's one of their main symptoms, and their joints hurt. When they first detox, they may feel that increase. So typically, whatever symptoms you typically have when your body starts eliminating, a lot of times at first you might feel an increase in those. Right? But when you do that, to me, I said, okay, increase your water, increase those other nutrients, and do more stretches, do more of the detox baths, and then just keep going through that for a couple of weeks. And a lot of times, then it'll start drastically dipping off and getting better.
For people that don't really understand, when we detox, we're pulling things out of our body, but we're also pulling out nutrients too. So when you're talking about supporting the systems, for somebody that's watching this that doesn't understand what that is, you want to make sure that you're taking your vitamins, your minerals, so kind of go over that with people a little bit, because that makes a huge difference. If you want a detox to help you, you have to have the good stuff going in.
For sure. Yeah. So for instance, like if I say I'm going to go clean my house, right, I've got to have the right materials to do that. Right. And I'm going to go through a lot of paper towels, and I'm going to probably go through a lot of buckets of water, right, to really clean it. So you have to replenish that water, right, consistently. You have to replace the paper towels consistently. So in your body has to do the same thing. So that's the foods you're eating. So it needs fuel. So it needs these foods, right, that to help there, but also needs minerals, right? So when your body, for instance, when you're doing a sauna, or you go to Bikram yoga and you're sweating out, right? You are sweating out not only stuff that you don't want, but you're sweating out things like magnesium and sodium, but potassium, right? So if you don't get those back in through either your diet or through vitamin mineral supplementation, guess what? You're going to get cramps, right? You're going to get more cramps. You're going to feel more tired, and your brain's going to be more foggy, right? And if you let that continue, you'll get low blood pressure and you'll stand up real quick and you'll feel like you're going to pass out, right? So it's very, very important that you put the right things in at the same time you're stripping the other stuff out, right? So for instance, if you pull lead out of the bones, right? Well, you got to put calcium back in the bones and boron and manganese and magnesium, right? And so you've got to have the good stuff going in while you have the other stuff going out. So that's why it's important with the right foods as well as the right nutrients to facilitate that. Does that help? And again, that goes back to, good foods, right? And also, in my opinion, very specific supplements as well to support that.
And so, kind of as I'm thinking, as you're saying this, where people start to feel worse, right? And that's why some people will be like, well, I did that, but it didn't work for me.
Yeah. And I exercised too, and it didn't work for me either, but I only did it for a week. Right? And so detox needs to become a way of life, but the thing is about even exercise, let's just say, look, I'm going to go gangbusters for 6 months and I'm going to really work really hard at getting to a certain level of physique, right? Both with my diet and my exercise. Well, if I did that, right, it would change, like my physique would change, right? But if I went back to all my old habits right after that, and I didn't do some type of maintenance, well, over time, I'm going to go back to my old physique. So the goal here is let's really, kind of like my house, like I want to clean my house really good, but then I want to do some maintenance stuff routinely so that it stays clean, it stays more functional. And so that's important to me. So when you're detoxing, this is really important. If you're just trying to clean your liver up, right? 6 months, okay? 6 months, every cell in your liver is replaced. If it's a brain-based problem, guess what? It's longer. Brains heal slower. If it's your intestinal tract, 2 to 3 months. Like you might feel better after a 21-day cleanse or something like that, but your cells in your intestinal tract replace every 30 days, right? Some faster, right? But like even the taste buds on your tongue, every 7 days, they're replaced. So if you go for like 21 days, people say, well, my taste buds are different. Yeah, because they're not craving the stuff they used to crave because they've changed. You're not feeding the same things, right? So every cell in your body is replaced all the time. If you do the right things, then it changes. But the change happened because of a change. Stick with the change that gave you the change you wanted. That's a lot of changing.
Right.
But that's the reality.
Two things that we had felt were really important to let people know, and you can go in them in whatever order you want to, is heavy metals and fertility. So people that are having fertility issues, and then if people are already pregnant and they want to do a detox.
Yeah. I just talked with a patient yesterday that got some testing back and they think that she might be having a Downs baby, right? And so go in and type in heavy metal and genetics. And for instance, a lot of the metals that are in our environment literally change fertility, right? They've known this about animals forever. I remember when I was a kid watching National Geographic and they're talking about these frogs that could no longer reproduce because they were downstream from this chemical plant, right? So not only heavy metals in general, but plastics and other forms of pesticides, they actually have what's called they're xenobiotics. They actually mimic estrogens, right? So it can absolutely affect fertility, right? And so ideally, I know clinicians, a friend of mine, that literally they want to work with somebody for a year before they try to get pregnant, to go through that, cleaning up their pathways and stuff like that. Okay, so ideally, and this, in my opinion, is not just for the woman. Okay, this is for the guy too. Yes, the woman carries the baby, absolutely, but I've seen guys' sperm counts be super, super low because they're toxic, right? Well, you got to work on that, right? And so both are important in my opinion. Okay, so if somebody is trying to get pregnant or they've had a lot of miscarriages and stuff like that, super important to do what we're talking about, like change those foods, change those the toxicity that are getting on your skin. A lot of your skin products, guys, they have estrogen effects, and so that's super important to get that out. And then getting the right minerals in, your zincs, your manganese, some molybdenums, all those are part of that cycle. Okay, if somebody is pregnant and they're wanting to detox, like you just got to be a lot more careful, right? But very safe to do it with foods, right? And truthfully, if it was my wife and she was pregnant and, you know, let's just say she was exposed to some type of environmental pollutants that was just, it was there, then I would aggressively go after it, right? What I mean by that aggressively, I would be doing, you know, everything I possibly could to support her pathways, because I don't want that into the baby. I just absolutely would, yeah. But I don't want to like doing things like I wouldn't do like an agent that would actually cause the body to release it more. I would do all the things to supportively bind to those and pull those out. So that's where I would do foot baths. I would do cold laser therapy. I would do the massage. I would do lymphatic drainage. But I would do a lot of minerals. I do a lot of activating nutrients. I would do a lot of things like that, those foods, to bind to those agents. I would use homeopathics, which you can use to help the body eliminate stuff. But I would test the body with what it's wanted, right? I know so with the I do a lot of lab testing, but I also do muscle testing and things like that to just try to energetically ask what the body wants, right?
Talk about the muscle testing, because I had told you on the break that I had a really great experience with a Brimhall chiropractor doing a heavy metal cleanse. And I want you to explain how is that different from some of the other ways that people might be working with a practitioner?
Yeah, and just so if you guys aren't familiar with muscle testing, like this isn't an end all be all, right? But when you go in to see a clinician, so muscle testing is what we use to try to find a way to communicate with the body and what it wants, not what I think it wants, right? To ask it, okay? And so because as clinicians, we make our decision based on the information that we have, and it's based upon our assumptions. And that's about like a lot of times the guy trying to figure out a woman. Like we just don't assume real well sometimes, okay? Right, Holly?
He's not looking at me.
I know, but what I'm saying by that is that yes, I like lab tests. I do laboratory tests. I do hair analysis. I do different forms of like MRIs and X-rays and all those type of things that your normal standard lab. I listen to people, right? But I also use muscle testing as a way to get feedback from the person. Okay, and so this allows me to ask the body what it wants. Okay, because I may find let's just say high lead on somebody, right? But their body might want to eliminate some other metal first, right? So muscle testing just gives me a way of asking the body some questions through muscle response testing to see what the body would respond to. Okay, think of it kind of like a lie detector, right? When somebody lies, their body gets in a stress response, right? We see increased heart rate, increased breathing, right? And if you can catch somebody in their lie, right? Because it confuses the nervous system. So muscle testing is a way for us to do that, to just try to ask. So for me, you use all your clinical data, all your laboratory testing, and then I also on top of that, ask the person's body what it wants. If you haven't seen that, like it's really fascinating to watch, right? But it's a way just to ask the body questions and think of it like a lie detector, right? But without hooking up to a machine. So the body is physical and it's also energetic.
And when choosing supplements, are you doing the muscle testing with that as well?
Both. So I will sometimes, right? Well, so I also look at lab, but I also do muscle testing sometimes. If I have to choose between two, then I want to know which one the body would rather have. My experience is that if I can support the whole system, right? If I can support all the individual areas that are weak, I'm going to have way less complications, right? Way less complications. What happens, a lot of people, they just try to do one thing, right? In medicine, we try to do one thing. It's not one thing, right? It's not just one thing, right? And so, but if I have to, and then I'll try to ask the body, okay, based on what I see right here, here's what I would do. And I'll ask the body if I have to pick and choose between a couple of things.
Okay. So how do people know if they're working with the right practitioner? Like, is there a set of questions that you would give to people to be like, ask your practitioner this question?
Yeah. So here's some of the questions. If you're not talking about detox specifically, then I go in and I like to just ask them, like, so you know what? And one of my favorite questions to ask any clinician ever, right? No matter what the field is, if they're giving you a recommendation, I will always ask to say, if your mom or your daughter or your wife had what I have, what would you recommend? Right? For me, that's always a great gut check for myself, right? If I had this is my family on the line, what would I recommend? Who would I recommend they see? I think that one question encompasses a lot of just really good soul searching for the practitioner, but also for the person to see, is this my best recommendations? So that's the one question I think above any I like. But ask them questions. Like I always tell them, like, call the office and see if they call you back, right? I mean, as simple as that is, I say, ask the front desk, you know what? Hey, tell me about your clinician, right? Is this somebody, how many of your family members have seen a clinician? I know this doesn't relate to specifically to like detox, but it's a really good telltale. And again, there are sometimes front desks that aren't great and they're just mean and nasty, but you'll kind of pick that up on when you talk to them. But I'm saying is that I like to have that check, because to me, part of getting well is it's here, but part of getting well is also coming from the heart, that this person I'm going to work with is actually really going to hear me and listen to me and understand what I need. So those are important questions. From the detox perspective, I like to ask questions like, okay, so what, if I want to maximize my experience, what does that look like? Like, what are the things that I can do at home to improve my outcome? Right? And what are some things I should do long-term? Right? So it's just, you can see how much of that from in my mind is what the doctor's just trying to sell to me versus like really trying to help me incorporate the habits that I need to have long-term. So those are just some of the questions that I like to ask, or I would encourage even people to ask me.
Right. So, you know, Joe and I, our recommendation for people is to really be able to go to brimhall.com. There's a thing where you can put your zip code in and you can find a Brimhall chiropractor. We want to make sure that people are finding people that are really have integrity and accountability, and that are, you know, have been with a network of people that we can vouch for, you know, their theories and their beliefs and their methods. And we really love the Brimhall network. So if you don't know where to go and what to do, go to brimhall.com and you will find someone there who is going to have the same philosophy and spirit that Dr. Brimhall here has. And because it's all part of the same group, right? You guys are kind of like a family.
Yeah, we are. And we were just at a big conference recently. It's really it. Like some of these people we've known for 30 years, right? And still out there learning. And that's what we want. Like, I love connecting with people like you guys and just say, okay, how do we help each other out? You know, and ask those questions, right, of those people and see, because there are some really great clinicians out there. But some of them just have not been exposed to this. And a good clinician in my mind, if it's not what they do, then they'll refer you somewhere else. Like, and I'm straight up. I'll see somebody say, like, this is something here that you need to go see this person with. I refer to other chiropractors all the time, just because there's stuff like that. It's just not, I'll do this part. I said that you need this here too, because it's just not what I'm going to focus on. I think that's also something you can do a gut check with. And please, you know, find, you know, Holly and Joe and I online at different things that we do. The goal is we want to educate more people, like, you know, so you can find me online, you know, Brett Brimhall, you can find Holly, deal with Holly, like just, you know, and plug into those groups and things that give you inspiration and motivation, and you throw some questions like, you know, that you think are important to you, or that maybe something you're not sure about. And we'll do our best to, you know, help you find the solution you're looking for.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today on covering some of these basics with heavy metals. We really appreciate it. And we're going to do another chat here sometime soon, and we're going to talk about the best food and the supplements, and, you know, what other things can be used to support heavy metal detox.
And the last interview in this series, for people that want to know, because it's always the big question, is the metal amalgam fillings video. So make sure that you watch the whole series, because we're going to do the metal amalgam fillings last, so that you have this whole foundation coming into about the metal fillings, so that you have an understanding to be able to get what we're going to talk about in that.
So like, share, subscribe, comment, do all that good stuff here online. Thanks for spreading the word.